My name is Mira Dawson. I'm 27 years old, and I work in archival audio restoration in Chicago. My job is taking damaged sound and making the truth audible again. Cleaning hiss. Separating voices. Restoring what people thought was lost. I never expected that skill would be the thing that saved me from my own family. I went back to my parents' house right after New Year's because I told myself the same lie I always told myself. Maybe time softened them. Maybe the holidays were tense. Maybe if I showed up calm and useful, they would act normal for one night. I brought sparkling cider, pastries, and my best polite smile. The first thing I saw when I walked into their kitchen wasn't my mother's face. It was a black trash bag beside the island, half open, stuffed with torn photographs, school portraits, graduation pictures, a photo booth strip from when I was 10, a Polaroid from my first apartment, a framed picture of me holding my dog the day I adopted her. Every version of me they had ever framed was ripped and folded like garbage. I didn't speak at first. I bent down, pulled out my high school senior photo, and my fingers went numb. Not because of paper, because of what it meant. This wasn't cleaning. This was rejection made physical. My mother, Tara, sipped her wine and said, "We're redecorating. No point keeping pictures of our biggest mistake." My father, Greg, chuckled like she'd made a clever joke. My sister, Jules, laughed and said, "She still shows up like we actually want her here." My aunt, Vera, added, "We've got a betting pool on when she'll finally get the hint." Then my mother pointed down the hallway and said, "We turned her old room into storage. More useful than she ever was." Everybody laughed. Loud. Comfortable. Practiced. Like destroying me had become tradition. I smiled. Because in that house, every emotion you show becomes fuel. I tied the trash bag shut, lifted it like it weighed nothing, and said, "I'll take this out." My father didn't look up. "Good," he said. "Do something helpful for once." I walked to my car with the bag in my hands, heart pounding, face calm. They thought I was taking my humiliation outside so it wouldn't stain their kitchen floor. They didn't know I had just carried the one thing out of that house that could ruin them. On the drive back to Chicago, I didn't cry. I didn't even feel surprised. I felt something colder. The kind of clarity that arrives when denial finally runs out of room. I sat at a red light and opened the bag again, expecting only more shredded images of myself. Instead, deeper in the mess, I found 3 mini cassette tapes wrapped in a rubber band. I found a cracked digital recorder, and I found a bank envelope with my father's handwriting on it. My stomach dropped. I knew those tapes. Years ago, before I got into audio restoration. I used to label everything in that house because nobody else cared enough to keep records straight. Voice memos, family arguments caught by accident, my grandfather telling stories when his voice was still strong. I saved sound because it felt safer than memory. Memory could be denied. Sound couldn't. When I got home, I spread everything across my kitchen table. Torn photos in one stack, tapes in the middle, recorder to the right, envelope last. Inside the envelope were late notices, a home equity statement, unpaid tax letters, a partially completed transfer form with my father's signature half finished, attached to a notary page with my mother's handwriting. They weren't redecorating. They were drowning. And suddenly, their timing made sense. The tension since October. The sudden projects around the house. The way my mother had been snapping at everything. The way my father was too busy to talk about money. They weren't clearing wall space for a new couch. They were staging the house, cleaning it up, erasing the daughter they treated like an embarrassment, trying to make the place look like a fresh start. I sat there staring at those papers and realized something brutal. For almost 3 years, I had quietly been cushioning their finances. When my grandfather got sick, he asked me to help keep the family house stable. He didn't trust my parents to handle bills without turning it into a crisis. He told me, "You're the only one who hears what people really say when they think no one's listening." After he died, I kept helping, not because they deserved it, because I still wanted to believe I could earn a softer family if I carried enough weight quietly. My parents didn't just throw my photos away. They threw away the person who had been keeping their lights on, so I did the first clean thing I'd done in years. I logged into the account I used to cover gaps and I stopped every transfer. Property tax cushion. Ended. Utility float. Ended. Insurance bridge. Ended. Mortgage gap payment. Ended. I didn't steal anything. I didn't sabotage. I simply stopped being the invisible stabilizer for people who treated me like trash on the floor. Then I did what I do better than anyone. I restored the audio. I cleaned the static from the tapes. I digitized each file. I listened through headphones in the quiet of my apartment while the city hummed outside my window. On the first tape, my mother joked with Aunt Vera about milking Mira, while Grandpa was still alive. On the second, my father laughed that I was good for silent money and nothing else. On the third, I heard my sister saying they should keep pretending to need help until I covered the next set of expenses, too. And on the cracked recorder, which must have activated by accident inside a drawer, I heard the newest conversation, my parents discussing the sale of the house, the timeline, the buyer, and the story they planned to tell the family if money got tight. They were going to say I promised to buy the house for them, then betrayed them. That was the moment I stopped being hurt and started being precise. If you found proof your family was setting you up with a lie, would you confront them now? Or stay quiet and gather receipts first? Comment. Confront or receipts. The next morning, my sister called at 9 a.m. I let it ring twice before answering. Mira, Jules said, stretching my name like it tasted bad. Mom thinks you took something by accident. Did I asked. Don't start. She snapped. You always make everything dramatic. What exactly am I accused of taking, doll? I asked. She hesitated. Then said, some recordings. Dad needs them. For what? I asked. Silence. I could hear her breathing change. She knew something was wrong. She just didn't want to admit it first. I said, interesting. Because you watched Mom call me her biggest mistake while you laughed. So if you want anything from me today, start with the truth. Her voice sharpened. You're unbelievable. You know they're under pressure. I know exactly how much pressure. I said. I've been removing it for years. That sentence landed like a door slamming. What are you talking about? She whispered. The taxes. The mortgage gaps. The insurance. I said. Grandpa asked me to keep the house stable. I did. After he died. I kept doing it because I didn't want the family home to collapse. While you all mocked me, my money kept that place from sliding into foreclosure. Her tone shifted from disbelief into fear. Mira, if you stop that now, I already did. I said, you can't do that without warning. She hissed. No one warned me before shredding my childhood. I replied. She tried to retreat to the family script. It was a joke. That word doesn't work anymore. I said, say the real reason. A pause. Then smaller. Because the house deal falls apart if those accounts lapse. There it was. Not love. Not family. Exposure. I agreed to meet her for coffee. Not because I needed explanation. Because I wanted to see what desperation looked like when my parents weren't the ones narrating. We met at a cafe near the river. Jules arrived 10 minutes late. Makeup perfect. Eyes red like she'd tried to control when she cried and failed. She didn't sit before speaking. Dad's bridge lender pulled back this morning. If the buyer shows up before closing, the deal collapses. I stirred my coffee. That sounds stressful. Be serious. She snapped. I am. I said. You're just not used to me staying calm while you panic. She lowered her voice. Mom said terrible things. Fine. We all did. I'm not defending it. But if this sale collapses, they lose everything. No. I corrected. They lose the chance to sell a house while blaming me for the fallout. She froze. How do you know? I let the silence do the work. Then I said, because you threw away more than photos. You threw away evidence. Her face drained. You recorded us. No, I said. You recorded yourselves. You forgot I know how to restore damaged audio. She swallowed. You can't use family conversations. Why not? I asked. You used family as a business model. Then I told her the part that hurt even to say. Do you know what it felt like? Jules, paying to preserve a home where you all spoke about me like mold behind the walls. She rubbed her hands over her face, then asked the only question they ever ask when the power shifts. So what do you want? I had asked myself that all night. Not revenge fantasy. Accuracy. I want the lie to die before it leaves that house. I said, no one says I abandoned them. No one says I promised to buy the house. No one says I manipulated Grandpa. If any of that hits the family group or church, I release everything. You would destroy them. She breathed. No. I said, I would stop protecting them. By late afternoon, my Aunt Vera had already started soft posting about betrayal. My mother added crying emojis. My father posted a vague line about children forgetting sacrifice. They were trying to plant the story first. Like always. So when Aunt Vera announced a spontaneous family dinner that night, I went. Not to reconcile. To end the guessing game. Her house was packed. Cousins in the kitchen. Uncles near the television. People circling snacks and judgment in equal portions. My mother stood by the island wearing grief like costume jewelry. My father avoided my eyes. Jules looked sick. Aunt Vera smiled the second I walked in. The kind of smile people wear before they light a match. So nice of you to come, she said. We weren't sure you still considered yourself part of this family. A few people laughed nervously. I set my purse down and said, that depends. Is this the part where you pretend I'm unstable? Or the part where you ask me to keep funding the house sale? The room snapped quiet. My father's head lifted too fast. My mother's mouth opened. Then shut. Jules stared at the floor. I pulled out my phone and read the amounts I had paid over the last few years. Dates included. Without emotion. Taxes. Insurance. Mortgage gaps. Utilities. Each item was clean. Factual. Undeniable. One cousin whispered, wait. Mira was paying that. My father finally spoke. This is private. So were my photographs, I said, until you threw them away like garbage. Aunt Vera tried to smooth it. There must be a misunderstanding. No, I said. There's finally enough understanding. My mother tried anger. You're doing this to embarrass us. No, I said. You embarrassed yourselves when you called me your biggest mistake. My father took a step forward, voice rising. You ungrateful. I lifted my phone slightly. Careful. I have audio. He stopped like someone cut a wire. I didn't play it. I didn't need to. Power isn't always swinging the blade. Sometimes it's placing it on the table where everyone can see it. I looked around the room. All of you heard jokes for years. Not one of you asked who was paying the price to keep them funny. Then I walked out into the freezing night. If you had receipts and audio, would you expose it in front of everyone? Or keep it private and let consequences hit quietly? Come on, expose or quiet. I went home and documented everything like a professional. Not like a daughter. Clean timelines. Bank confirmations. Audio files backed up. Chain of custody notes. If they wanted to paint me as unstable, I was going to make stability undeniable. At 11 at night, my father left a voicemail saying I was sick and trying to ruin the family. At 11:30, my mother texted, families say things in frustration. At midnight, Aunt Vera wrote, please don't make temporary emotions permanent. Temporary. From people who made permanent scars. Then at around 1 a.m, Jules called crying for real. The buyer asked for proof of clears. She said, Dad can't provide it. Mom thought Vera could cover a bridge, but she can't. Dad used part of Grandpa's reserve already. That hit harder than the photos. How much? I asked. She told me. My stomach turned. It explained the urgency. The staging. The lies. Vera is trying to blame it all on you. Jules whispered, they're saying you manipulated Grandpa when he was sick. Do they have that in writing yet? I asked. Not publicly. Good, I said. Tell them if my name is tied to elder manipulation. In fraud, abandonment, any version of promised and refused. I release everything by sunrise. She begged me not to. I told her to stop them. I can't control Mom. She whispered. All of you controlled the room when it was me being humiliated. I said, figure it out. Then she said the sentence that summarized my life. I think they really believed you'd keep helping no matter what they said. At around 2 a.m, the pounding started, violent enough to rattle the coat hooks by my door. My mother's voice broke through the hallway. Mira, please. My father shouted my name. Behind them I heard Aunt Vera crying and Jules whispering, please just talk to us. I walked to the door, left the chain on, and opened it a few inches. They were there. My mother with mascara streaked. My father ashen, jaw tight, Vera clutching her scarf. Jules trembling like the building itself was cold. My mother sobbed. We were joking. I looked at her. Now you want to use that word. My father tried to reclaim control with tone. This has gone far enough. You're right, I said. That's why you're out here. My mother pressed her hands together. Tell us what you want. Transaction language. First, I said, you stop lying tonight. In the family group chat, and individually to anyone you told a story to. You will state I did not abandon you, did not promise to buy the house, did not manipulate Grandpa, and did not betray any agreement. You will state I privately covered multiple costs tied to the property, and that your treatment of me was cruel. My father recoiled. Absolutely not. Then go home, I said. My mother grabbed his sleeve, terrified. Second, I continued, you admit the reserve was used without proper disclosure. My father started to protest, then stopped when I said, I know the amounts and dates, and I have audio. Third, I said, you do not contact my employer or anyone in my building with any version of this story. If one whisper hits my professional life, I release everything beyond this family. Vera shook her head. Public humiliation is too far. I stared at her. Public humiliation was turning me into a sport. They typed while standing outside my door. My mother first. Jules next. My father last. After refusing long minutes, Vera tried to water it down. I said no. When they finished, I made them read it out loud through the gap in the door. Then send it. My phone lit up immediately with shocked messages from relatives. One person wrote, I had no idea. Another wrote, I'm sorry, I laughed. My mother heard the buzzing and started sobbing again. Are you happy now? She asked. I answered honestly. No, but I'm no longer available for your version of unhappy. They left a little after 2:30 in the morning. Shoulders collapsed. Story no longer under their control. In the weeks after, the sale didn't go the way they wanted. The buyer renegotiated. My father had to disclose more than he planned. My mother's social circle thinned. Vera lost committee roles. Jules started moving Grandpa's remaining documents out of the house. Quietly, without speeches. And me. I went back to work. I restored a damaged city council tape. I cleaned a deposition file. I listened to the steady hum of a studio where truth matters more than pride. For the first time in years, I felt lighter. Not because my family fixed itself, but because I stopped letting them build a life on top of my silence. They threw my photos away. Then they stood outside my door at 2 a.m, begging me to save them from their own lie. They learned something I learned long ago. Sound doesn't care how loud you are. It only cares what you actually said. If you want more real stories like this, subscribe and turn on notifications. The next one will hit even harder.